Good day everybody and welcome at E36 and E46 vlog 59 coolant flush. In this vlog I'm going to explain the different types of cooling fluids and which one to use for the E36 and the E46, and also we're going to show you guys how to do a proper coolant flush. So actually there are 5 different types of coolants. Number 1 is G11 and that color is like blue or green. Number 2 is G12 or the G12 plus, and that's red or pink color. And number 3, that's a universal fluid and that's transparent or yellow. Then number 4 is the SP14 and that's green from color. And number 5 is the SP15, that's yellow from color. This vlog is about the E36 and the E46 and BMW in general. You need G11. Why? Most of the car parts shops they sell G12 or G12 plus. I wrote about it a lot and I noticed it myself also. What happens if you put G12 in your BMW E36 or E46? Well, at short time nothing, but at long time it's going to eat up some materials from your radiator, your rubbers, your pump, etc. So BMW uses materials that are not resisted for the G12. In the G11 there are other additions that's good for your engine. It is an aluminium block and it's very important that you use the right cooling fluids. So I see a lot of guys who exchanging their G12 for G11, so that is possible, but don't ever mix it. If you don't know what fluids were in, like in my case it was so low that I couldn't see the color anymore and I put G12 in it, that's not a right thing to do. If you have a question about what do you have in it, the best thing you could do is put distillated water in it and then flush the system and put everything in there new. Also, when you want to go from the G12 to the G11, like I said, what a lot of guys doing these days, flush your system. And when you flush your system, don't do it with a commercial product, but do it with a professional product. I'm not going to talk about brands. There are certain products that only been sold to the professional companies. And why is that? Because 1, they are more aggressive, 2, they work better, and they don't give an explanation how to do it because it's more aggressive. So it's very important that you do it the right way. So the G11, that's the one for the E46 and also the E36. You have 2 types of G11. BMW they give a product which they mix 50-50 with distillated water. So 50% of the product and 50% distillated water. Make notice, because I see a lot of guys making that mistake, you have distilled water and distillated water. To make a long story short, the distilled water, there are still salts in it and whatever that can make your engine rust. And in distillated water everything is out and you can put that in your engine without any rust or whatever. So BMW, like I said, has a 50-50 product, and there are also products from G11 like the one that I used that are already mixed. The reason why I choose for that product is because if you flush your system there's always going to be some old fluids in there, so it's really hard to mix the 50-50, and also when you have to refill your system it's hard to do it in the 50-50 ratio. So that's the reason why I'm going back from the G12. I would also get them at the part shop and I returned it for the G11, and my choice is pre-mixed G11. I also worked at the E36 at the rust prevention. Like you can see in this movie, all the way at the left is the ML version. I'm spraying on the gold metallic version, so that's with the metallic iron parts in it. And then the secret formula all the way at the right is the extra dinitrol, is like a rubber coating that's already over it. So here you can see the 3 different layers, like the anti-rust, the protection seal layer and the extra layer just on this shot. So for now I'm going to show you in also 5 steps how to proper flush your cooling system. Pay attention. There are a lot of guys who say it differently. What I see is there are a lot of guys who have air bubbles between their flushes. The way how we did it, we didn't get any air in the system at any flush. So suit yourself. If you do it like this, you don't get air. If you want to do it some way else, then have it your way. But like I said, there were no problems with air in the system on the way how we did it. So I'm going to show you now in, like I said, 5 steps how to proper flush your cooling systems of your E46 M45. Well, actually, before step 1, so step like 0 is buy a new cap. I bought a whole new reservoir, but I didn't replace the cap, and it was broken. One piece was in it, and also one rubber was also in it, and one was getting loose. So first of all, get a new cap when you do a coolant flush or when you replace your cooling fluids. Okay, step number 1, get your old coolant out. First of all, make sure that your engine is completely cooled down. That's for several reasons. One, when you open up your cap, it gets out just like a volcano, so you can burn yourself. And 2, the temperature inside your engine can get imbalanced, so yeah, the engine can get warped, and that's something you don't want. So make sure the engine is completely cooled down. So we used 2 drain plugs to do the flush. When you're standing in front of your car, at the right side, right under your radiator, there's a blue plug, you can't miss it, it's light blue, and we drained it from there. Always make sure you take the cap off to get the pressure off, so it leaks out better. And then we used the engine drain plug. Some guys say don't use it, if you destroy it, you have a problem, blah blah blah. Even when you do those 2 things, there's still going to be 2, maybe 1.5 liter of old coolant still inside the system. So you really have to do these 2 if you want to do a proper coolant flush. So when you're standing in front of your car, at the left side, right under your exhaust, there's a plug. We filmed it and we show you where it is. A tip, unscrew it a little bit so it drips out, go to the side and get it out. If you don't do that, you get a coolant flush, a shower.
Ja, was wel snel weg. Just in case.
Right over you, so make sure you're not under it while you get the drain out. So that's the first step to get your old coolant out of the system. So step number 2, that really depends on the state of your old coolant. I mean with that, when there's rust in it, dirt, when you mix G11 with G12 and there's some jelly substance in it, then you have to completely flush it with distilled water first. Forte said that it is possible to mix the flush with old coolant, but it's better to flush it all the way with distilled water, so the additions are more aggressive and they work better. Because the flush is so aggressive, they say that you can start your engine but you cannot drive it. They advise 10 to 15 minutes. We waited a little bit longer because we waited until the thermostat was getting on. If you don't have that, only half of the circulation is on. When the thermostat is getting open, you get a full circulation. So we waited for about 20 or 30 minutes. After 15 minutes, we put the RPM up by giving some gas, and the thermostat was getting open and the process was getting way quicker. It is possible to put it between 1000 and 3000 RPM to speed up the process, but we did it the slow way. In our situation, the old coolant was in a good state. It was light pink and there wasn't any dirt or substance in it. So what we did, we filled the system halfway with distilled water. We put in the Forte flush, and after that we filled the system for the other half also with distilled water, and we didn't rove it, and after around 20 or 30 minutes we flushed the system again, also with the 2 drain plugs, just like step number 1. And yeah, the thing is with the filling of the system, a lot of guys they also already start the engine when the system is completely empty. Our trick, or what we did, was we didn't do anything, filled up the system. When it was a little bit filled, we put the ignition on, fan speed on low, temperature on max, and we slowly filled up the rest of the system. So like half of the system was fully filled, and then we started up the engine, waited until the thermostat was getting on and the full circulation got on, and then we start filling up the other half. It's actually quite logical, because when you're completely empty and you start your engine, the system is attracting and pumping air, and that's how air bubbles existing. So what we did is we filled up the half of the system, and while the system was getting on, it attracts coolant instead of air, and we didn't have any problem with the 5 or 6 flushes that we did with air bubbles in the system. And you can check that when your heating warmth is getting up and the temperature is getting into the middle, then there is no air bubble in it. When your car is not getting on temperature, or your car doesn't get warm when you sit in the car, then it means that you have the air bubbles and that you might have damage to your engine. So that is step number 2. Okay, then step number 3, of course, cool down the engine again, and then we flushed the distillated water mixed with the Forte flush. And for the first time we did a complete fill up with distillated water, and this time we took the car for a spin so it could really flush out the chemicals. We went to the car wash, and this was a time so that we could clean the bottom plate. It was really dirty, and we got back to the garage again. Okay, then step number 4, of course, cool down the engine again, and then we flushed the distillated water out of the engine. We saw a lot of foam inside. That's because of the chemicals of the step 2 flush. So we decided to do another flush fully with distillated water. So we filled it up for the second time all the way with distillated water, and we took the car for a spin again for around 10 minutes, and we brought the car back to cool down. So step number 5, we wanted to cool down the engine completely. So we made some food and we eat it, and we went to the garage and we wanted to drain the distillated water for the second time. And then we found out that we were missing our wheel adapter. So we searched everywhere, but we couldn't find it. So that meant that we were lost it at our test drive. It's really unbelievable. So we decided to took the BMW fully filled with distillated water and drove the whole route real slowly. And believe it or not, my buddy found it just on the side of the road without his glasses on, and it was just before we were getting on the highway. So what the heck, it was unbelievable. And we got our wheel adapter back and we drove back to the garage. Because of that, the temperature was way up again, and we had to wait again for 45 minutes. So this is not really a difficult job to do. You have to know how it works, but it's a really dirty job, and it's really time consuming because you have to cool down the engine, get your car up and down, drain the fluids, fill it up again, get the air out. So it's a dirty job and it takes a lot of time, but it's very good doable yourself. So then in step number 5, we drained the distillated water for the second time and we filled it up with the G11, and we did that the same as with the other drains and fillments, and we didn't have any air bubbles in the system. So I'm going for the last ride now. Two things that's very important. One, your temperature gauges has to be on operating temperature, and also make sure you got some spare coolant for if anything happens. The temperature on your gauges is to be on max and the fan speed on low. I assume that they put the fan speed on low, so most of the heat stays in your engine and your thermostat is getting on. So I've got myself some coffee, because now I'm going back to the garage and I have to wait until the engine is cooled down. It has to be at least 30 minutes with a 6-cylinder, and it's better when you got it fully on operating temperature if you wait 45 minutes. So that's why this procedure takes so long. So I'm going back to the garage in this sauna over here, and then I'm going to wait for 45 minutes, and then I'm going to finish the last flush. So while we wait until the E46 is completely cooled down, I'm going to show you the samples that we took. So we took 5 samples. The first one, so this was was a little bit pre-mixed with some distillated water at the end, and I don't know if it was also mixed with some clear coolant, but this was in. When this is really dirty, you have to do a complete distillated water flush in between. We filled it up with Forte and with distillated water. This came out. After the first complete flush with distillated water, was still a little bit pink in it. After the second flush with distillated water, it's almost clear. And after the 5 flush, semi-flush with G11, it's green, blue. So you go from pink to green in these 5 steps. If this is still a little bit pink or there's dirt in it, you have to flush it again with G11. But these are the 5 steps for a good flush. So like you can see, the dipstick is on max, but it still takes water. Thermostat is getting on now. When you see this, then it's almost full. That means good circulation. So even if you followed all these steps, let your BMW cool down for one night, and then the next morning check your coolant level. It should be on the same level or about on the same level as the day before. Maybe it went down a little bit, then fill it up, and then you probably don't have to look back at your cooling system for the near future, only when you have to work at your radiator or your pump or whatever, of course. So when you like this vlog, or when it was helpful, please a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit this subscribe button.